All right, let's talk about the housing market, specifically what's coming in 2026. The National Association of Realtors just dropped their big forecast, and honestly, it looks like we're at a real turning point. So, what's in the cards? Let's dive in. This is the question everyone is asking, right? Whether you're trying to buy, thinking about selling, or just watching the economy. It's been a wild ride. Super high rates, barely any houses for sale. So, is it finally about to get better? Well, this forecast seems to think so. And the answer is a pretty big yes. So, let's get right to it. The big headline number? A whopping 14% jump in existing home sales predicted for 2026. And let me be clear, that is not a small bump. We're talking about a huge rebound here, something that could really change the whole vibe of the market. Okay, so a big rebound is on the way. Let's unpack what the National Association of Realtors is seeing that makes them so confident about 2026. And listen, this isn't just some shot in the dark. Their chief economist, Lawrence Yun, put his name on it. He's basically saying that next year, 2026, is the year. The year things don't just calm down, but actually start to grow again in a way we can really see and feel. Okay, but wait a second. If a bunch more homes are selling, does that mean prices are going to drop? Nope, not according to this forecast. In fact, they're predicting a 4% increase in home prices. And the key takeaway here is that they see no danger of prices going down, mainly because there are still way more buyers than there are houses to sell. So that's the big question, right? Why is all this happening? What's driving this big change? Well, it's not just one thing. It's a few key economic pieces falling into place. Let's look at what's really going on under the hood.
First up, and this is the big one, lower mortgage rates. I mean, affordability has been the massive wall for so many people, so even a small drop in those rates could open the floodgates for all the people who've been waiting on the sidelines.
And the number they're circling is right around 6%. Now, look, that's not the super low rates we saw a few years back, not even close. But it's a modest drop, and that little bit can make a huge difference in your monthly payment. It's enough to make buying a home possible again for a lot of folks. But it's not just about the mortgage rates. There are two other big things propping this up. First, people are still getting jobs, which means they feel secure enough to make a big purchase. And second, the market itself is just starting to feel, well, more stable after all the chaos. Okay, so that's the money side of things. But who's actually out there buying houses? This is where the story gets really, really interesting. The data shows this massive shift in who the typical home buyer even is anymore. Okay, get ready for this. The typical home buyer today, their median age is 59. 59! And if you just look at people who are selling one house to buy another, it jumps to 62. That is probably not what you were picturing, right? So what's making the move? It's not what you might think, like a new job or needing more space. The number one reason, by far, is to be closer to friends and family. It's a decision coming from the heart, not just the wallet. And there's actually a perfect name for this. Jessica Lautz, another economist at NAR, calls it the grandbaby effect. I love that. It just perfectly captures this powerful, emotional reason that's changing why people buy homes. But here's the thing. While this group of buyers is doing great, there's another group that's really, really struggling. So let's flip the coin and look at the other side of this story. What's happening with first-time home buyers? And the numbers here are just, wow. First-time buyers now make up only 21% of the market. That is an all-time low. They're just getting completely squeezed out by high prices and tough competition. And for the ones who actually manage to pull it off, it's taking them longer than ever. The typical first-time buyer is now 40 years old. That whole idea of buying your first place in your 20s or 30s, well, for a lot of people, that's becoming a much, much harder dream to reach. So what's the deal? What's holding them back? Well, no surprises here. The biggest problem is just finding a house they can afford. But then you've got this impossible cycle, trying to save up a down payment when your rent is sky high. And oh yeah, you've probably got a mountain of student loan debt too. Okay, so we've got this market that's bouncing back, but is also changing in some pretty fundamental ways. So what does any of this mean for you? Whether you're trying to buy, sell, or just trying to keep up with it all. Here's something that might surprise you, especially now when you can do almost anything online. The huge majority of people are still using a real estate agent. We're talking 88% of buyers and even more sellers, 91%, are getting professional help to get through this. So, what are agents actually doing for people? Well, according to the report, it boils down to three main things. They help you price the house right, which is tricky right now. They know how to market it so people actually see it. And most importantly, they find a real, qualified buyer who can actually close the deal. All right, so let's boil this whole thing down. Here are the big takeaways. 1. Home sales are about to bounce back in a big way. 2. Prices aren't going down. In fact, they're going to keep creeping up. 3. The market is really being driven by older buyers who've done this before. And 4. It's tougher than ever for first-time buyers to get in the game. And all of this leaves us with one last really big question to think about. Yeah, the market is recovering, but it seems like it's a recovery mostly for people who already own homes. So as a whole new generation is getting priced out, you have to wonder, how is the whole idea of what home ownership even means going to change? That's the real puzzle this forecast leaves us with.